All righty, here we go. How about a 16th of May edition of Flyers Daily, presented by Ticketmaster? Make more memories live. Our Flyers Exit Day interview series will continue in this episode with what I thought was a really fascinating, deep at times conversation with a guy you can have a deep conversation with. That is Garnet Hathaway, the proud of Brown University. We'll talk to Garney coming up in this episode. A couple of things before we get to that. Real quick, want to give an update on my health real quick, and then we're going to talk about what's going to happen later this morning when Rick Tocchet is introduced as the 25th head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. First of all, my health, I had my scans last week, as I told you guys about it. I did get the results, went with my oncologist on Monday. Very positive results. It was deemed what is called a moderate response. It did what it was intended to do, the 4 months of chemotherapy and the 8 treatments over 16 weeks. My CEA levels, I just found out yesterday, which are your carcinogenic embryonic antigen. It's a protein that's found in your blood. When you have cancer, it's very elevated, and when you don't, it's not. It's a protein that it builds up in your blood to fight cancer. My levels are back down to normal. That doesn't mean I'm cancer-free. I'm not. But it did shrink things. It did what it was intended to do. But I'm still on to the next phase. Monday, I'll go in and I'll have what's called a radiation simulation, where they will go through the process of what it's going to be like when I go in for radiation 5 days a week for 27 sessions beginning in a couple of weeks. So all good news. Things are moving in the right direction. I'm feeling better at times, still suffering from fatigue at times as well. That's just the reality of the situation, but things moving in a very good direction. So thank everybody for your thoughts, prayers, notes, messages, emails, whatever way you've communicated with me, whether it's through Twitter and DMs or whatever it might be. Your support has been amazing, and I wouldn't be where I am right now without it. So all good news on that front. And obviously I'll keep everybody in tune with as we go along. I'm being very transparent about every step of this process. So thank you to everybody in that regard. Today, this morning, they will have an introductory press conference at 10:30, introducing Rick Tocchet as the 25th head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. I believe I'll be sitting down with Tocchet for a one-on-one conversation, which we'll have next week for an episode. We'll have Bill on Monday for Mondays with Meltzer, and presumably a sit-down conversation. I do this with every time a new coach or GM or somebody comes in. I get to sit down and break bread with them, and we'll do that with Rick Tocchet, who I've known for such a long time. I did some radio with Tocchet back in the day. I did some TV with him as well. He's a great guy, and I'm looking forward to his tenure here in Philadelphia. And whether you think that he was the right hire at the right time or the wrong hire at the wrong time, whatever you think about it, the fact of the matter is that's the guy that will be the bench boss for the Flyers moving forward. And I think we all agree, whether you believe it's the right hire or not, that you want him to succeed. We want this team to move forward and succeed and ultimately become a team that's a bona fide playoff team and a team that moves towards being a legit cup contender. That's what we all want. So we're all hoping for the same thing. Now, I did get this email. I'll tell you what, the email, I brought up Jared, who has sent me a bunch of emails and does a very good job with researching his emails and putting stats and screenshots. We were talking about high danger chances with Mishkov earlier. He does great emails. I got this one from Tom. He says, "Hey, Jason, hope you're feeling a bit stronger every day with the news that Rick Tocchet could be the next head coach of the Flyers before he was named." He sent this 2 days ago. He said, "I started looking at some of the common criticisms that have been thrown Tocchet's way to see if the facts back them up. Feel free to use these for an episode of Flyers Daily." And he said, number one, Tocchet's track record. He has his coaching record there. And his coaching record over his career, 638 games coached, 286, 265, and 87 are his numbers with a 516 points percentage. He said, at a glance, it reads that his career points percentage is just above average. I've heard the most criticism about his years in Tampa and Arizona, so I wanted to put a spotlight on those seasons. Now, he started with Tampa in the 08-09 season after a very short and failed experiment with Barry Melrose as the head coach in Tampa that year. He went in 66 games, 1933 and 14 for 52 points, finished fifth in the division, came back with Arizona in the 9-10 season, And he went 34, 36, and 12 over 82 games. With 80 points, he finished third that season in the division. Then he went on to Arizona. So here's what he says. Tampa Bay. Tocchet was named the interim coach after Barry Melrose got fired. He was an assistant when he took over for Barry Melrose. And he said, while 52 points in 66 games isn't great, the year before the Lightning had finished tied for the worst record in the NHL. So it's fair to say there was a lack of talent on the roster. Martin St. Louis and Lecavalier were on the team, and some rookie named Steven Stamkos. But that's about it in terms of offensive skills. This was a team very early in their rebuild. They got Stamkos in that draft, number 1 overall. They got Hedman the next year, number 2 overall. So he said in Tocchet's first and only full year with the Lightning, Stamkos had a 51-goal season. Boy, would it make an impression on the league. He said Martin St. Louis had 94 points and Vinny Lecavalier had 70 points. These are all 3 young players. He said Tocchet, well, St. Louis and Lecavalier weren't young at that time. Stamkos was. He said Tocchet, was Tocchet the catalyst behind all of that? I think it'd be silly to imply that, but at the very least, I think it shows he has a history of letting offensive players flex their muscles. I agree. He said, in addition to that, his experience with Stamkos could be something he leans on as he tries to pull the best out of Matvei Michkov. Very true. He said new ownership took over in 2010 and Tocchet was fired. That happened. We've seen that happen before. On to Arizona. He said his longest stint as an NHL head coach was with the Arizona Coyotes. He said, I won't bore you with the season-by-season stats, but I found this interesting. In his 4 years in the desert, Tocchet only had 2 players score more than 50 points in a season. Clayton Keller, who had 65 points, and Derek Stepan had 56 in 17-18. He said, as to how much of that was Tocchet's system versus the talent on the roster requires a deeper look, but I think we can all agree that Arizona wasn't exactly the best-run organization in the league. I think that became even more evident when the team moved to Utah. And there was always the rumors about the team leaving Arizona, ownership changes, not great ownership. There was a lot going on there. He said from the time with the Coyotes, made the Western Conference Finals in the 11-12 season to their final season in Arizona, which is 12 years. They only had 4 seasons where they were above 500. 2 of those seasons came under Dave Tippett. The other 2 came under Tocchet. The Coyotes only made the playoffs once in those 12 seasons, which was in 1920, also under Rick Tocchet. Okay, number 2 is point that Tocchet is a defense-first coach. Now, I said the other day on an episode, every coach preaches defensive structure. Whether you're an offensive coach, you're a defensive coach, you're an aggressive coach, or you're a passive coach, they all preach defensive structure because it matters so much. And hockey is a cumulative sport. Preventing goals is equally as important as scoring goals. So he says in his email, Tom, well, what coach doesn't prioritize defense? That's how you win in any league. But the underlying criticism is that offensively gifted players will be stunted under Tocchet. And he said, I don't think that's necessarily fair. A fair amount of his former players who have spoken up for him are offensively oriented players, to name a few. Sidney Crosby, who has been very effusive in his praise of Rick Tocchet from his time in Pittsburgh, where he won 2 cups as an assistant coach under Mike Sullivan, to Quinn Hughes, who has his best statistical season under Tocchet. And obviously that was recent with the Vancouver Canucks. Brock Besser, Jake Gensel, Brian Rust, Connor Sheary, Tom Kuhnackel have all praised the effect he had on their careers when they were young in the game. He said also, Tocchet has been praised for being tough yet personable, and that's important to keep that accountability in the room. And I totally agree. That's one of the traits that I look for in a coach that preaches accountability for all, not some. He said, in addition to that, he's been praised for his communication skills, which is something that seemed to come up on a few occasions between John Tortorella and the players on the Flyers. And he said, that's by no means a shot at Torts. I'm not in that locker room, so I wouldn't feel it would be fair for me to make claims about something where I wasn't present. But that being said, being a good communicator is one of the best attributes any person in a leadership position can have. Again, totally agree. Good points that Tom makes about Tocchet. I think that Matvei Michkov will flourish under Rick Tocchet. I think players that play the game with a lot of detail, I look for Sean Couturier. That's the one I'm really interested in. What is this next phase of Sean Couturier's career with Rick Tocchet as the head coach? Clearly, Couturier and John Tortorella didn't see eye to eye. Couturier comes back from missing 21 months off of back surgery and has varying results, effectiveness. Beginning of the first season, he was really good and tailed off at the end. I thought he finished last year strong. I think under Rick Tocchet, that could be a player that reemerges. Is it going to be the level of when he won a Selke and 76-point seasons and north of 30 goals? Maybe not that. But can he be even more effective than he was the past 2 years? That's one that's really interesting for me. Travis Konechny is another one. Very interesting for me. Sanheim. I think that Rick Tocchet will lean on Sanheim a great deal. Now, with that also comes the news yesterday that we saw. I think Charlie O'Connor broke the story that Brad Shaw would not be coming back as the Flyers coach of the defensive corps under Rick Tocchet's head coach stint here in Philadelphia. And some say, well, why is that? Well, I think it's really hard for a guy that was up for a job, he was an assistant coach, then he was up for the head job, didn't get it, to then work for the guy that got it over him. That's a difficult thing. That's a tough kind of putt for a guy. You wanted the job. Now you're going to work for the guy that it's tough. We've had this happen to us in our careers as normal people, not pro athletes, right? There was a time when I was at WIP where our program director at the time, a guy named Tom Lee, left. I was up for the job. I was a finalist for the job. And at that time, and I didn't get it. And they brought in another guy. I won't even mention his name. And that guy, his resume was far more advanced than mine at that time. I was very young in the industry at the time. This was back in 2005, maybe. And I didn't get the job, but I stayed on and worked for that guy in that role. And it wasn't easy sitting there knowing and seeing this guy screw up things 6 ways to Sunday and knowing that's not how I would run things. And I was in a position to be running things until they hired him instead of me. So it's a tough look. You have to have some ego and you have to have some pride. Brad Shaw will be on to his next thing. That's unfortunate. I would love for him to have stayed because I think he did a great job here, a really good job here. And I think players like Cam York, Travis Sanheim, Rasmus Ristolainen, and others on that blue line will look back on their time that they spent with him as being some really important years for them. So I wish the best to Brad Shaw. We'll see who controls that part for Rick Tocchet when he comes in. Luke Richardson's name has been out there. Is he a guy that would, coach the defense and the penalty kill? We'll see. Maybe we'll get more details on that coming up today. But excellent email from Tom, and I appreciate it. He said at the end, if you've gotten this far, thanks for reading this novel. I'm rooting for you and wish you well. Go Flyers. Tom, great email. And as always, you can always send me emails at jason.myrtetus, MYRTETUS @gmail.com. We feature a lot of them on the show. You can also hit me up through social media, Twitter X at Jason Myrt. Send me a DM, shoot me a tweet. We're going to be getting to a bunch of those in the next coming weeks. And as I said, Rick Tocchet will join us coming up on an episode next week. Bill on Monday. Flyers Exit Day player interview series continues. Sean Couturier next week on Wednesday and Bobby Brink on Friday. And I thought it was interesting the Flyers put out the video of Danny Briere, Dan Hilferty, and Keith Jones calling Sean Couturier to tell him before it got out public that Rick Tocchet would be the next coach and that Keith Jones said, you should be the one that tells your teammates. To me, that was very symbolic for the captain to be able to do that. And it shows a lot of respect that Dan Hilferty, Keith Jones, and Danny Briere have for Sean Couturier. And damn it, he's earned that respect. Sean Couturier has. He carries himself like a pro. So great stuff. I loved seeing that peek behind the curtain and that element of calling him on the speakerphone and telling him that. I thought that was cool as it comes. Great stuff. Good job to whoever's idea that was. All right, let's get to our Flyers Exit Day interview. You guys are going to find this one fascinating. You may have to listen to this one twice to get everything out of it. I love talking to Garnet Hathaway. He is incredibly intelligent, incredibly cerebral. He has worked for everything he has gotten as a professional hockey player. Here's my Flyers exit day conversation with Garnet Hathaway. Joining us on this Flyers Daily Edition, another exit day interview conversation with Flyers forward Garnet Hathaway. Garnet, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm doing well.
Good. Let me take you back 8 years ago, November 20th, 2016, 3 days before your 25th birthday. Do you know what you did on that day?
Oh, yeah. Scored a goal, my first in the National Hockey League at the Joe against Jimmy Howard, assisted by Dougie Hamilton and Michael Furland.
It's amazing. What jersey number were you wearing?
64.
Yep.
Yeah, the whites with a mustache because it's November.
Yeah, it was November.
Yeah.
That's great. The recall is
You
spectacular.
know what? I've been meaning to put up a couple. Luckily, the league does a really good job of, or organizations, I guess, with helping you with milestones.
Yeah.
And my wife, I think about how proud she is. She, make sure that plaque is in my house somewhere.
Well displayed.
Not well displayed. Actually, we moved not too long ago, so it's still sitting there, kind of collecting dust with a couple other ones. But
you gotta get a prominent spot for that.
That one, it's my my second child was born November 20th.
Wow.
Yeah, so not 2016 though.
So. They don't coincide that way.
No.
Through your 10 years, 1,929 hits in the NHL. How do you feel physically?
I feel good.
That's a big number.
Yeah, it is.
You're not making a lot of
business
decisions.
Hopefully better than the other guys.
Well, you're delivering.
Yeah. I'd like to see the other side, actually. I wonder what the flip side of that is. I think I take a lot of hits as well.
Yeah, you're a player that plays with contact.
Yeah.
That's part of your game.
I think I just run into people, most of the time. It's
Look,
intentional,
I
unintentional.
think you make it look sometimes like you're just running into people, but there's intention there. I happen to bump into you here down by the blue paint again. You're a disruptor, man.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. I think, funny enough, I've, once I turned pro and tried to figure out the pro game versus the college game and what that meant for my role in my identity, I guess, that was a way for me to just play my game. I don't know.
Be engaged.
Yeah. And
you can control that. That's a decision.
Yeah. And that's...
Yep. Puck's going in.
That's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of... Yeah, it's funny you said it like that because I think coming back from my injury this year, I talked about how you think everything's in your control in this league, right? You're like, I worked out today,
I'm dictating.
Shot pucked. Yeah, you know what I mean? I rolled out. You don't know what the goalie's doing.
Nope.
You got no idea.
You can't crawl in their
Puck
head.
hits you off your pants. You put yourself there, but what do you
You were
control?
behind Howard when you scored that first goal, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
You tip it from behind him.
And I thought it was, I didn't even know winning because I got stuck in the net. I kept slashing them. Yeah.
Some things never change.
I think I screamed. I tipped it.
Dougie knew.
Yeah, Dougie did.
As I watched the video of it, yeah.
Dougie knew.
All these years later, you're still in this league. You know who you are as a player. I think coaches, when they put you in the lineup, they go, I know what I'm getting from that guy. Predictability, undrafted player out of Brown University. What have you learned over the 10 years?
So much. Oh man.
It's almost an unfair question.
Yeah, it is. How could you do that? How to not perfect that because I don't think I can or will, but the importance of being consistent.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's allowed me to get in this league, playing in the minors and being that consistent player. And then getting to the National Hockey League and saying, hey, I think I had a lot, my legs were unbelievable my first game of the National, and it's and then you'll never have the feeling in your legs as you did game one.
You're floating in that
You're
game.
Floating.
Yeah.
You don't have a clue what else is going on in the game, but you're floating.
Yeah.
And how to be consistent, because 82 games is a lot, and you have ups and downs, and your game dips, right? So mentally, physically, how can you be consistent as much as possible?
Gain some control.
Yeah.
It's about gaining control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to it, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you take those things out of your control that are out of your control and flip them in your favor?
Yeah.
And stay in this league and be a player that your coach wants to put you in their lineup card. It's not easy.
Easier said than done.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's not easy.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a testament to who you are as a person as well, to be able to do that and be one of those guys, because every guy on that bench sees it, and that becomes infectious. And it's part of the game, but it's also part of a culture and a mindset of not only an individual player, but it can become of a team, and you need that to win.
Thanks.
Which you did. And you have done. You've done your fair share of winning. Maybe not this year. Let me take you back to the injury. Because injuries are tough on players mentally, because you're away from the guys. The team was really struggling at that point, and you just want to be out there to help. You want to help be a part of a solution. So when they leave the rink after a game, the music's playing. You feel good. You want to go back to the rink. And it's so hard when you can't help. What was that like for you? It's a helpless feeling.
Jeez, man.
Pretty deep, huh?
Yeah, it was. And I just kind of spoke about this to my other,
the other psychologist?
Yeah. Are you for the by the hour? No, with the reporters in the other room. And I think you stated it, basically covering exactly what I told them is I missed 15 games. I watched the team go 4-10-1. I watched Lottie and EJ get traded at the deadline. Kuzmenko, I saw from a distance our coach get fired, and an assistant coach become the interim head coach, and us fall farther out of a playoff race.
Yeah. It's a
while
lot.
Being on a different schedule than the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Skating when they're working out and working out when they're skating, and
that's a lot, man.
it's and all the while trying to see if I feel like myself and am improving and am on the right path to playing a consistently physical game that I try and have my identity.
Yeah.
It was really nice to be back. I think
finish the season, right?
Yeah.
That's why I went to that game on Tuesday. I hadn't been at the rink since December. I was like, come hell or high water, I'm going to be at that game. 'Cause I just want to finish the season that way.
Yeah.
You don't want to finish it on the sideline.
Yeah.
You want to be there.
Yeah. And it was tough because I had to find out if I was I take for as much pride as I take in being consistent and being reliable to my teammates. I could not, probably emotionally, but physically as well from the trainer's side, come back before I was ready to be myself.
Yeah. And that's a hard thing to measure when you're dealing with what you dealt with.
And
it doesn't show up on an MRI.
Yeah. And so having that weight on top of all those other things we talked about, it was nice to get back and play. And end the season in the room with those guys lacing up the skates.
The way you guys ended the season, I thought showed a ton of integrity. You guys are out of the playoffs. You knew it. But to not cheat the game, play the game with integrity as professionals, and still do those little things that mean so much to win. Because when this team is a playoff team, you'll look back at those days, and that'll propel you forward. Because that's an identity. So important.
I hope you realize how right you are. I think you're completely right on that. My wife said it the other day too, and I'll give her some credit because she'll probably get mad if I don't. But she said a quote. She's like, "The way you do anything is the way you do everything."
I've just said that to my kids.
Yeah, and I mean,
if you're taking something on, take it on.
We have a very proud group. We play with a lot of pride. You're gonna have to. You're not gonna have to. You play these games in these situations the right way, because we always want to play the right way.
Yeah.
we're going to win playing the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Us, we're preparing, we're doing those things that it takes to win throughout that stretch because the guys in that room won't do it any other way.
Yeah.
That's how they do everything.
Yeah.
And that's the group we have. And that's, I think, what people are realizing. And as guys grow,
you've been around guys that don't do that. You see what that does to a team.
Yeah. And I've seen
It's a drain.
and I've been on teams where, I think when I was in Calgary, we were kind of in this similar almost rebuild situation. My first game, I got called up on the deadline because they traded everyone but 11 forwards, and they needed the forward.
Yeah.
That was my first game.
Yeah. That's your opportunity.
And so I've seen a team go through different coaches, like I did in Calgary, and a team have control of their playoff spot. I think when I was in 16, 17, and then in that dip, maybe it was 17, 16, 17, 17, 18, one of those dip, and it's like, okay, what's the next step, and how do you improve on that? And that's by doing things that way.
Yeah.
And you
all
will
the time.
all the time.
Yep.
And I think you need the guys in the room to believe in that, and I think they'll grow with that mentality.
Yeah. It's poignant because if you do that when you are a team that's in position to win, you don't have to flip a switch because the switch flip is baloney. You don't just flip that switch. It's either you do that or you don't. It's your identity. Let me ask you about playing with Alexander Ovechkin because he broke a record that, and you've assisted on some of his goals. It's a big deal because it's a ridiculous record that he broke. And the way he did it after missing so many games this year, I mean, when you see that, and you were around. I mean, I remember early in his career, I watched he had a practice here at the practice facility because they couldn't have their skate or whatever at Wells Fargo. And I watched him practice, and he just did everything 110%, 100 miles an hour. Every shot he took into the empty net was as hard as he could, like he was trying to blow the back of the net out. What'd you learn from Ovi?
Oh, any record can be broken.
Yeah.
If you put
even the unbreakable.
Yeah.
That was unbreakable. That was thought of.
It was
Yep.
unbreakable.
In today's game with today's goaltending, kidding me?
He's a natural ability.
Yeah.
But he also has that commitment to greatness that I saw, every day. It doesn't surprise me as much as that record seemed unbreakable. It doesn't surprise me that he broke it.
Yeah.
Because of what you said, because of the times he spends in the gym. Like, he's such a competitor that the guy broke his leg and came back and scored 44 goals.
He didn't have like a
You know
wrist
what I mean?
injury or
Like,
something. Seriously, like the injury's ridiculous. And the pace he scored on at 39 years of age.
It's
insane.
It's insane. But he also has that. One thing I always loved about O was, you see how he celebrates for his own goals.
He's got an infectious joy.
But he celebrates the same for anyone else's goal.
Yeah.
You just don't focus on it.
Yeah.
He's a guy that, you see someone go through the line, down the line after a goal. He's the first guy whenever he's on the ice, I think, just because he's so freaking excited that he's like, we scored a goal.
Yeah.
You come back to the bench. It's just like he loves scoring goals, and he loves winning, and he loves his teammates doing well.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's perfected throughout his career.
Yeah.
Learning that's the way you win is by doing those things right.
I think he's been so good for the game, not only in D.C., but because of that infectious nature of the way he celebrates, the way he handled the, obviously winning the cup with no guard. He just went, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to be elated, and I'm going to party. Like, there was no airs about it. Just awesome to see.
Yeah.
I think that stuff should be celebrated. In the league where they say, players don't say anything, that's a guy who shows you.
He'll show it that way.
And he's a showman.
Yeah.
Oh, just incredible. to see that up close day in and day out, I imagine is pretty incredible, which you got to do. What's your summer look like?
Well, I have 3 young kids, and
I know what that looks like.
I'm gonna, step away for a little bit and reset. It's tough because I missed an entire month.
Yeah.
Or 6 weeks. I had a 4 Nations break. I played 2.5 games, if that.
Yeah.
And then missed
I feel like something was taken away already.
And then missed another month and a bit. So my body feels really good right now.
That's good.
And I think I want to, but I think I owe it to my family to be a dad.
Yeah.
For a little bit and
go back to being a hockey guy in a little while.
I'll be and they love me as hockey guy. But I think they love me as dad.
And they always will
when it really comes down to it. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
It's I'm gonna watch probably a lot of playoff hockey too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just as a fan.
Yeah. Get caught up in the ride of the craziness,
and just enjoy it that way.
Do everything to be in one of those teams
try
next year.
and try not to be as bitter as I really want to be.
Yeah. It doesn't do you any good.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't help because at this point I can't control it. Right. So
it goes right back to control.
So I can control that part. I can control, the time I spend with my family right now, and
being present.
And being present. So that's what's really important.
Man, I love talking to you. Damn, great conversations. Garnet, enjoy the summer, enjoy the family,
Thanks.
Enjoy finding your center, and I look forward to us reconvening in the fall to get after it for another season. But in the meantime, enjoy this summer, and I thank you for doing this.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome to sit down and have an in-depth conversation like that with Garnet Hathaway. Just great stuff. I hope he has a great summer as well. Garnet will be back again for next year with that contract extension. So we look forward to many more conversations with Garnet Hathaway as well. Hope you guys enjoyed that also. We'll be back on Monday. Mondays with Meltzer. Press conference coming up today to introduce the 25th head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, Rick Tocchet. We'll have that to react to and much more. So join us then on a brand new Flyers Daily.